here's a.
No.
I think someone's
There's just
laughing.
okay, but welcome to Life in Face Fuel. This is part 2 of Chad Crandall's wisdom. Actually, I would consider it wisdom. Yeah.
Wisdom, yes.
Okay, I want to know more about how did you find yourself isolated, away from your family and parents, away from like any sort of like I guess safety net after I guess high school, right? Is that when you found yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the nitty-gritty of these details, and I've concealed this. Actually, I've never announced this publicly, but I will on this channel for this reason. Okay, so my family was abusive, and not necessarily the stereotypical way of abusive. My brother was extremely abusive toward me. My parents were abusive in the sense of neglect. Okay, so I was on my own at a very early age anyway. I didn't get the attention that a child needs to develop successfully or to develop properly. You know, I had a lot of emotional issues. I did things that I regret to this day, and actually at the time I thought I was right, but I look back and I go, wow, what the hell were you thinking? And I'm sure we all have our regrets like that. So I'm going to say that, you know, the abuse from my brother was physical, and you know, there was a lot of things that I struggled with in that regard. My family life was not ideal in any way, shape, or form. And there was no, actually, my memory's completely blocked out from the matter. I have PTSD from it, so I have no memory before about 15 years old. It's gone. And so I can't remember my past. All I know is why I left. And so I can tell you that so trying to remember that is difficult, but I can tell you that the life was very struggling. So there's a certain point where you realize, okay, is this what life really is? Is this all it has to be, is to continually perpetuate the circumstances and the behaviors of those before me? How much is it nature versus nurture? Do I have to become a psych case or do I not? You know, am I bound, am I destined to become a problem? Am I going to contribute or am I going to take? And so the first thing I said is I need to figure out how to do this, and I need to get away from this unhealthy shithole of a family. So I went to the family member that I was closest with, and that was my grandfather. And I said, I need $1,000 to get the hell out of here. And he said, okay, give me a budget. I said, okay, will do. And so I gave him a budget, he gave me $1,000, and I left. You know, and with that $1,000, got an apartment, did my standard crap, got a job, did everything I could to start moving. And at the time, obviously, college wasn't really feasible. I went to college that summer, and you know, that was about as much as I could afford at the time. And it just wasn't really feasible at the time. And I was at the time, I was suffering through a lot of jealousy. I mean, all my peers, all my high school friends were going to college, and I was like, man, I just wish I could go to college like the rest of these people. And it was a jealousy moment in my life, and where I was just like, damn, I need to be like everybody else. They're all passing me up. They're all graduated. I mean, even until I was about 22, they all graduated, and I hadn't even started. I mean, I was at a point where I don't know, 2 semesters under my belt, and they had, what, 16? You know, like, it was really frustrating for me. So the answer to your question is, how did I find myself by myself, was because I knew that the destiny that I could create for myself was going to be better than what the shit hand of cards I was dealt as a child. And, you know, I knew that. I said, whatever I face, it's not going to be as worse as where I came from. You know, it's not going to be as bad. I was like, no matter what, I don't care what happens, it's not going to be as bad. And that was the challenge. And for me, you know, I just read this comment, kind of distracted me, but the not remembering before 15 sounds like point of least resistance, SI. I mean, it could be. I don't really care what the cause is. I just know it's not there. You know, so the idea is that you know that if you keep that in your mind, that you're moving forward at all times, because no matter what the external circumstances represent, they may represent a oh shit, my life surrounded me with, I'm empty around me, but it's how much are you learning from every experience and every moment in your life. And that to me was, I would never want anybody else's life. I've learned to really appreciate everything I've been given, and everything that has happened in my life has happened for good. I've learned from those things, and I hope that I can contribute and continue to contribute knowledge that I've gained through those experiences to be able to contribute to people and help them feel inspired to do things that they thought were impossible at one point. Because there's a lot of people out there who have home lives that were a lot worse than mine, and mine was pretty bad. And so they still have a chance. They may not have the same mindset I had, and they may have given up. And but you can imagine the appreciation I have for people who do have very, very close families, and I'm in complete astonishment by the people who do, and I absolutely admire it to a level that I'm just like, wow, that's so awesome that you actually got lucky, because we don't get to pick our families. We just are born with what we have. But the society has trained us, oh, you must love your family at no cost, and say, I don't believe that shit. I don't buy it. I don't think that there's an entitlement that comes with having sex one time and then having kids pop out, and now these kids are forced to love you. It sounds like slavery to me.
Yeah.
And I don't buy it. And so, yeah, people are like, well, that's your mom and all this. And if you incorporate spirituality, that goes into belief systems versus what's tangible and provable. And so there's a totally different thing. I mean, we can talk about beliefs all day. I mean, if you're Christian, you must love your parents, whereas if you're another religion...
Abuse is abuse, no matter who does it.
Yeah.
And I don't hate my family by any means. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't feel it's necessary for these people who struggle. I can't leave my family because it's obligation. That's bullshit.
You got to do what was best for you, for your own development.
Yeah.
And when you come to that conclusion, that it's just you have to get away from it. No matter what,
right.
Maybe emotional bonds you may still have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because ideally your parents would raise you properly until the age of 18, when you are an adult and you decide but they don't do that, then you take matters into your own hands.
Right, and I wish I could really contribute on methods that I think would work. I mean, obviously I have my own theories, but methods that I think would work for parenting in today's digital age versus parenting 50 years ago, because I think parents are really screwing up, and it's easy for me to point the finger and go. It's easy for me to point the finger and go, y'all suck at parenting, whereas I don't have any children. I mean, that's kind of hypocritical in one way, but in another way, it's also uninformed. I don't know the challenges that they have may not shared. I've read a lot of books on parenting to try to get a grasp of it, but I've never had that experience. I don't feel like a parenting expert, but I do feel like there are better ways that we need to approach this particular issue when it comes to childbearing, specifically in areas that lack socioeconomical development. How do you raise kids in an environment that you don't have money? What do you need to do differently versus, it's easy to put a kid in a good school. It's easy to do that, but both socioeconomical environments include their own challenges. If a kid is born with abundance, then he's never going to know what it's like without. And a kid's born without
parents. Two working parents. That's the entire problem.
If you're born in a non-abundance and you're born in complete poverty, you may have a subconscious bias toward people who have money, and it actually may prevent you to hate money. And if you hate money, you're never going to make money. You're going to have money and you'll spend it. I know people who have a fear of money so much that every time they get some deposit in their bank account, they spend it. They can't stand having money in their bank account, and it's subconscious. It's not like they consciously walk around and go, man, I got to spend this on something. I can't have it. It's not what happens. It's a subconscious hatred toward money.
Yeah, and I want to cut in there because I think a lot of people, when they show just pure resentment toward wealthy people, there's a lot of things that wealthy people do that are corrupt and terrible, but when some people show an emotional hatred towards that, I think to myself, you're just telling me that you never want to be in that situation where you're that wealthy. It's just a subconscious bias, like you said.
Yeah, and that's the thing and you're going to do everything you can to not become one of those people.
And you might not even know it. You might not even realize that you're undermining your own behavior.
And even
even I do that probably sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm guilty of that sometimes as well. But I'm going to go back to the whole this sort of psychology of struggle, and it's become so prominent in our society nowadays to view something like struggling as pejorative. But like you said, I mean, it is a deeper refining process of yourself. Anytime you fail or anytime you have a bad experience, there is a deeper level of understanding that you gain from the world and yourself. And if you learn to approach it in the right way, you can manipulate that to your advantage. And I think that's a big skill that people need to learn to capitalize on,
You see, and here's the thing, this is the underlying theme of the whole day, is this capitalism versus socialism, is how much is it okay to give you before you actually take it in a way that it becomes entitlement.
Yeah,
and
for granted.
Before you start taking it for granted, how much can I actually give you? And so that's where the challenge is, and you mentioned, and I believe that struggle is necessary for growth. I like conflict because it allows me to grow. I like to work out when it freaking hurts because I know I'm going to be better tomorrow. You know, you don't work out and it just, okay, that was easy. I did 10 reps and I could do 50, but I just decided to do 10. Cool. All right, going home. You're not going to see results that way. I think that conflict is beneficial. You know, not all conflict, of course, is beneficial, but I think conflict usually that strive for resolution is, or some kind of personal growth is beneficial. So I enjoy conflict for that reason.
Yeah.
And when you provide a socialism-based government, the problem is you're putting people in a position to where you're reducing the amount that they need to grow. A lot of that struggle is necessary, not all of it, of course. There's a lot of times where it's not, and that's why I said I'm for social programs in some areas. You know, I think that's necessary, mainly on a state level or a local level, not so much a federal government level. But the point is, you know, I think, you know, Hami says, socialism that goes against our nature is fundamental as human beings. So I think this is imperative. And then ADHD also said something really important. How you deal with conflict inherently, and that's absolutely true. You can handle conflict as a win-lose situation, or you can look at conflict as what can I gain from this situation. I have a skill in being able to handle conflict really well. I grew from it though. I wasn't always that way. It was more defensive, like, oh shit, you know, you're attacking me. Whereas now it's not you're attacking me. It's more of what can I gain from this experience.
Yeah, I've been presented a challenge, you know, where it's a new circumstance in order for me to gain new understanding or a more developed understanding if my current understanding doesn't provide enough. But it's definitely it's a way of approaching it. You know, it definitely is like something that when you start viewing struggle and competition and stuff like that pejoratively, then it doesn't allow for a fertile environment for someone to engage in higher principles, a higher lifestyle, and transcend this sort of like instant pleasure, avoid like struggle, avoid competition, because it doesn't lead any way to any self-progression of just having everything laid out for you. I mean, I think like a completely like socialized based system, I mean, where's the incentive for progression, for making yourself better? I mean, there is almost a spiritual transcendence in refining yourself to be a better person in regarding any type of situation that you are presented, conflicts with people, even in like interpersonal relationships, stuff that might not even be public. All of this stuff is a refining process, and people just don't think about it that way, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, Patrick, you had something to say?
No, I had something to say a while back, but go ahead.
Okay, so I want to jump on that too, because when you take away the ability for one to naturally learn and grow, you're really stripping them of more than just money. You're stripping them of life experience. You're stripping them of their unique contribution to the world, and because that unique contribution comes through the experience of living. So when you provide too much socialism, you're removing their own contribution, in my opinion. Now, Callum says that's not necessarily true. It's not true in all cases. These are generalized statements. Okay, so I will say that there are unique circumstances, generalized statements that are different. Like for me, my situation was unique. But I'm talking in a general consensus. If you provide too much for someone, there can be an inherent issue with that particular thing. I think that struggle is necessary to an extent. I don't think that you should work out until you die, which if you work out too much, you die. You know, whereas if you don't work out at all, you also die. You know what I mean? Like, of course that's exaggerated, but you get my point. You know, like there's moderation. So if people ask me, you know, are you 100% capitalistic? No, I'm not. I believe in capitalism, but I'm not 100%. There has to be a balance. Too much capitalism is essential to the person, you know, working out all day and then dying. And then too much socialism is the person not doing anything and then dying. Yeah. So that's the concept is you have to have a moderation that provides both that appeals to human nature, and that also appeals to, you know, incentive and growth and struggle. And you have this challenge because we're not looking at this from a humanistic angle. We're looking at this from as if humans were objects, and that's the problem that we have with our government today, is that people aren't looking at it from a humanistic angle. We're looking at it, what is the best solution logically? Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, in itself, socialism is a brilliant model if everybody were brilliant, right? It's brilliant. I mean, okay.
They take out the emotions of people.
Yeah, if you think about socialism as in itself, removed from context and removed from actual applications or in historical context, it's pretty brilliant. You empower everyone. Okay, great. That makes sense.
I think it's like a utopian ideal, but I think that it just destroys the identity of the people. You know, it destroys the identity where it represses the individual aspects that are supposed to arise in the face of competition, in the face of a natural hierarchy of trying to transcend yourself as a person.
Right. And here's the fundamental question that people, capitalists and liberals, well, I say liberals, socialists, generally will argue, is what are fundamental rights and what are not. Okay? You know, what are human rights? From being a human, what are your natural rights? I think liberals and progressives, more so liberals, socialists, progressives, whatever, more of these people, they tend to think that there are more natural human rights than, say, people who are capitalistic.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, and that's the fundamental philosophical difference. So instead of arguing about healthcare, education, blah, 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 you should argue about the very fundamentals of what makes people, you know, what is a natural right and what is not. If you can solve that and find a consensus among that, all this other shit will go away.
Right, yeah.
Because that's the fundamental philosophical difference. All this other bullshit will dissipate. And this whole bipartisan shit is irritating to me because it does split our nation.
It does,
you know?
yeah.
And I don't like the partisan thing. I don't like it at all. I don't like the Republican side. I don't like the Democrat side. I don't like splitting people. Like I said, I don't like segregation. I can understand it for analytical purposes, like demographics and things like that for business. But as far as like instituting those type of things in societies and groups and putting and segregating people in a physical reality, that's a totally different thing. And to me, that's frustrating to me because, you know, I don't know if a lot of these comments are people, if they're commenting on I like to respond to some of these.
I feel like I accidentally like don't pay attention, then I look back and I see like all this shit. And no, Caleb, the answer to that is no. Food, water, and shelter are not natural rights, especially not shelter. Water is not a natural right. The only right you have to water is non-interference when you go to drink it. You have a right for someone not to, you know, shoot you if you go to a river and try to drink water out of it. No, unless they own that river, but
nobody owns a river, so
yeah.
You know, is food, water, shelter not a natural right in a country? No, countries are laws; they're not rights. Countries establish rights, but they're not natural.
Eric makes this argument a lot, where it's like a right is that which confers a duty. Okay, if you say I have a right to water, let's say I have a right to water. Well, then if I sit in my room here and I don't drink any water and I die, whose fault is it exactly? Okay, if it's my family's fault, then basically what you're saying is if I go and take a piss and my piss is a certain color of yellow, so I'm dehydrated. The more dehydrated I get, that means that the state would have the obligation to hold like a gun to my family's head and tell them like, you must make him drink water. They have a duty that I drink water. You know, if you say it's me, then that means the state should hold a gun to my head and make me drink water. That's what that means when you frame it under that. You don't have a right to water. You have a right to someone not to fucking shoot you if you try to drink water. No, it is not arbitrary. This is the foundation of civil rights. This is the foundation of natural rights, foundation of our country.
Who gets to decide what is right in a country? That's the country's government, and that's the problem we have. And the people elect the government. The people created the government. That's what the United States, if we're talking in reference to the United States, the people, in reference to the, well, I mean, we get that, but that's still not a, should they starve? Okay, who's starving in the United States? Please tell me. Okay, you see, now the whole point is it's completely impractical then. If nobody's starving in the United States, why the hell are we discussing this issue? We need to be discussing the fundamental problem is the limitation of natural rights. Because according to even Locke, it's, you know, the pursuit of, not the pursuit of happiness, but property, right? Life, liberty, property, right? That's John Locke. So we look at that and we go, okay, and then, so the United States was founded on 3 natural rights. So why are we adding more natural rights as a, yeah, I mean, why are we adding all these natural rights when that's what the country was founded on? That's the, I don't understand where this is coming from. That's my whole point. Is like, okay, now we have more natural rights. So a lot of liberals and progressives believe that healthcare is a natural right. I don't think so.
I agree.
I don't think healthcare is a natural right. I think it's to an extent that we should have some social responsibility in healthcare for our people. I would agree with that, but as a natural right, no, it's not. Before the institution of healthcare in general, and all you had was sticks and stones, it doesn't make any sense. Now you have these things, so now do we establish natural rights? What the hell is a natural right? It sounds like the country can watch you die and do nothing.
So you're saying, Caleb, you're saying that it's okay if I sit in my room and I don't eat any food and I die, then it's not my fault? It's someone else's fault. Example of a natural right is a right to non-interference.
Okay, so a natural right is a right that's not established by any government. It's the simple right of being human. You have this right because you're human. It doesn't matter what government you're in, what country you're in. It's a human right.
I actually disagree. I actually think there needs to be a state to have natural rights. That's something that me and Eric disagree on.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's find a consensus so we can solve these issues here. So let's say that we're using your definition, Zachary. It still doesn't avoid the answer to the question because you and I's answer is going to be the same regardless.
Yeah.
We may have a fundamental disagreement of what a natural right is, but it still doesn't. I
look at it this way. Like, okay, you have a natural right. Like, okay, say I have a natural right to, like, okay, the type of rights, negative rights and positive rights. And it's like I have a negative right to non-interference. So if I don't have a state, then I can just walk around with a gun, and if someone tries to, like, attack me, then I can shoot them and make sure they don't do that. But a state just establishes, like, it's that right is superseded by a higher power. So it just makes things a lot easier so everyone doesn't have to walk around like, I don't know, it's like it's Fallout or something and everyone has guns.
It puts a statute on the natural right, but the natural right still exists. And so I mean, that's the whole point. And so I'd agree it's not a natural right, but more evolved it becomes a more right to have access to health care. I mean, okay, but you still have to put up an argument for that. The more evolved. Well,
the problem with that, the problem with when you frame it that way, Dusky, is like when you say that it's a right for people to have access to healthcare, it's not free. Okay, you have to justify stealing from other people in the society who don't even know the person who's getting this free healthcare. You're going to justify stealing from those people to provide this healthcare. That's what you're actually doing.
What about the healthcare workers as well? You're asking them to work for free.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a natural right. Healthcare to me is not a natural right, and so I don't think that because healthcare expands or the country expands or we gain more population, that all of a sudden rights increase.
Now, Hami, you said do property rights apply to natural rights? I don't know exactly. I mean, in a sense, right? I don't think that. I guess you naturally own your body. Like I'm a person with a capacity for moral understanding and a capacity for reason, and there's no way you could frame that to where someone else owns that. That is intrinsically connected to me as an agent. So that, in essence, would be property, and that can be extended to my body because it's there's a direct connection there, right? No one else owns my movements of my body, so it has to be logically consistent with that. Now, when you extend to things like do I own this guitar pick? Well, in a contractual situation, I would. So if I paid money for this to someone who made the guitar pick and I took it, then I would then own it.
Okay, this is an interesting point. ADHD said, stealing, people make billions of dollars because they got lucky, shouldn't have access, shouldn't have taxes to assist the less fortunate in their health. Well, ADHD, you need to think about this in a different perspective because what is quote-unquote getting lucky? How do we judge one person from getting lucky or another? Because if we start limiting quote-unquote their luck, what is that doing now? We're actually limiting their freedom, okay? And this is not what America is about. It's not about limiting freedoms, and that's not like I said earlier, the Constitution is actually, it's a negative right document. So it's not about what we should provide, it's what we shouldn't do as a government. So when you say things like, they got lucky, that makes me go to question, what about Warren Buffett? Did Warren Buffett get lucky? No, he didn't.
Oh, no.
He worked his ass off. Okay, so he's one of the richest people on the freaking planet. So you're telling me that he should face consequences he should face consequences because he's rich and he worked his ass off for it? Whereas other people, no one needs billions. Okay, I'm sorry, that's insane. Yeah, that's insane too. $1 million? Yes. Okay. No, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, what that means
Um,
when you say that, Caleb, means like if no one needs bills, that means after a certain amount of money, once you're successful enough, then it becomes okay for a centralized authority to steal that from you because you no longer now it's like oh you're too successful now we're going to steal that with guns actually if you don't pay us this money then we're going to fucking shoot you for resisting.
See, I agree with Zachary on this because they shouldn't make that much. By what standard? Please tell me what standard you're
yeah, like why shouldn't they make that much? What the fuck?
Yeah,
Wait,
like
what are your
what's-
views in relation to like big corporations or these super banks that supposedly are too big to fail?
Okay, so now if you're asking me, Hami, this is a good question because there are corporations that are too big to fail, and I will say this specifically in the United States banking system. It's a private system, but the United States economy depends on it. And that's where there's a problem, because now we've got this thing called commingling. You've got a government that depends on the institution, a particular chain of institutions or businesses that have gotten too big, and the government has to bail those institutions out, or else the economy collapses. That is a problematic situation in our entire governmental structure when it comes to how we regulate our economy. So yes, I think those things should be solved in another way. It's not like, okay, let's close these businesses down. That's not the solution that should be approached. I think the solution should be how do we make our economy where it isn't entirely dependent on these super large private banks. It's not hey kick their ass because they're successful. That's dumb to me. You know, so
Yeah.
I don't think the government should bail out corporations. I think
No, but
yeah.
I do agree they need to bail out the banks because the majority of our economy is financial services.
right.
So if they fail, then the economy is basically implodes.
Yes, I don't like that system. I don't like that our government depends on private corporations. I think private corporations are private, and they shouldn't have direct control over how the actual federal government, which is public, runs. And when you have the government depending on these organizations, that creates problems because now it puts you in a position where the government has to bail you out, and you're too big to fail. That is an issue. What needs to be addressed is the United States economical system and being able to figure out a way, which I haven't thought of in full, to remove private banks from having so much power. Not by killing the banks, not by reducing the banks or punishing the banks because they were successful, because again, that's a limitation on freedom, but finding a way to around in our economy where they do not depend on that. Again, this comes a lot back to Hamilton versus Jefferson again. Is centralized banking better than private banking? You know, so
Caleb said, what do we say in 10 years when people can't get basic low-wage jobs? I assume you're referring to automation, and my response to that would be proper education, and we should start training people to be aware of things like that, because, I mean, even automated machines are going to require workers to keep them in the proper place.
And also,
Going.
also, as our living standards increase, you're not going to find people in this country that are going to be willing to work for that low wage. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You want like you're gonna be hard pressed to find people that will actually work for minimum wage as like their career basically.
Yeah. And Dusky said, it's unmoral for them to keep money they will never use the people, but there are so many problems with taking money from those people. Well, that claim is based around, again, stealing. I mean, after a certain point, does it become okay for the government to steal more money from you just because you're more successful than your peers?
yeah, see, I don't like that at all. Now, it's true that people, at a certain point, there's a threshold where you don't need excess amount of money. But again, that's stealing. At the end of the day, it's stealing. You know, so here, that's the issue that I have with the whole thing is, if I work my ass off and earn this money, and I want to be a selfish prick, that's my right. I don't need you to steal my damn money. Now, I do believe that there should be statutes and regulations. I believe in taxation. I think that we should be taxed. I think that I should have more control over where my money goes. I don't want my money to go to, let's say, whatever they're putting their money. I want to have control where the hell my money goes. Let's say that you take your you give me the option of choosing. I want to choose an option list. I want to tell you where my money goes. And that would be much more satisfactory to me than you telling me and taking my money and going, you know what, I'm going to use this money to... It's the same thing with welfare. You know, like I'm paying welfare, and these people take this welfare, and they take that welfare and they go buy drugs or alcohol or whatever. Not everybody on welfare does that, so I'm not saying a generalized, but I'm saying there are people who do that, and I don't have choice over that. And see, that to me is not fair, because that is my money, and I should have that money. Yes, you can say, as a state law, you're required to give, say, 10% of your total income. Okay, that's fine. I agree with that because I live in this country, I made my money in this country, and I used your system to be able to get ahead. I understand that. Here's my contribution back. I understand that too. But you're not giving me a choice. You're helping me fund these federal programs that I don't even freaking believe in. And that to me is bullshit.
Okay, Caleb said, I think we need to shift away from jobs as a deciding factor in what someone's worth because it will become more and more irrelevant. Well, then what would you provide as a solution? What do you think we should hold people as worthy toward? What criterion? Yeah, I agree, Hami. Hami said, I think we should do away with corporate welfare and foreign aid.
And also, like, what are your thoughts on the military-industrial complex?
Can you be more specific?
Yeah.
So in terms of all these, I guess, what do they call it when government, like basically these public corporations that make like weapons and arms for the United States military, and they're always buying, I guess, through lobbying to get into more wars and more conflicts, which makes them more money.
Okay, so is this a proven fact or is this a theory?
I mean, if you follow the money trail, you can, I guess, logically put it together.
Okay, so
ADHD keeps like they posting this, so let's address this. They say, okay, an individual is lucky enough to be born under the right circumstances to afford college, have a healthy childhood, and go on to become rich. Another individual who's born into a family that is in poverty, so they can't go to college, or if they do, they have to work 10 times harder. You think it's unfair to tax a rich individual to help the less fortunate person? In general, I think that everyone has the ability to be successful if they try to. It is true that some people are born into inherently disadvantageous positions.
I really want to interject because this is okay. So using the same rationale, I can say, you know what, Patrick, you're ISTP. That's bullshit. So you owe me 10% of your money now on because you were born as an ISTP. So now you owe me.
Yeah, you're just lucky. You're just lucky, bro.
You're just lucky, you piece of shit. Give me your money. And that's that same rationale. That's what this is saying. Because you were born with circumstances in which you can't control, you should be punished. And that's not right. That to me is not right. And so no, that is absolutely not right. I mean, yeah, that person needs to work 10 times harder because if the person who needs to work 10 times harder, you also have to look at the challenges that the person has who was born in the rich family. What kind of challenges are they going to have? They're going to have their own challenges. It's not going to be monetary. Monetary isn't the only measure of worth. So yes, they're well off financially. But look at the other issues that this person has in their life that, say, the broker or the more poor person won't have. You don't know that.
They usually have way more emotional problems.
So the consequences are still the same regardless, and it's still a fair playing field, but people have different advantages. That to me is, that rationale is not valid in a circumstance of this. It's unfair that the less fortunate, he wasn't given a career. Who's supposed to give careers? You work for your
have you been playing the devil's advocate this whole time, you motherfucker? Trent's an ENTP.
Yeah, I've seen him. He was the one that licked his elbow, right?
Wait, what?
Isn't he the one that licked his elbow on Talking with Famous People?
I don't know. I haven't really talked to Trenton lately. I haven't been that active on the GTMs actually.
Yeah, he licked his elbow. He's like double jointed. He's a freak.
What the fuck, Trent?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I do think there may be some things that ought to be done regarding those who are perhaps disadvantaged, but stealing from everyone else isn't the proper way to do it, in my opinion. But honestly,
empower them.
Yeah. Caleb said stealing. I mean, what else do you want to say it? We peacefully tell you to give us more money, otherwise we will come to your door with guns because you didn't pay your taxes and take you to prison. And if you resist, we'll fucking shoot you.
Caleb, either you're a troll.
You don't deserve that money.
I think Caleb's somebody that's fucking with us right now because that's ridiculous. It might be Eric screwing with us.
Wait, do you guys think that the IRS should exist?
Why
IRS?
Yeah.
If you're using it simply as a tax collection agency, I mean that's fine. You can establish a separate agency to collect taxes. But as corrupt as the IRS is, I want it to go to hell. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. The IRS isn't real. Yes, it is. I live right next to Austin. I've been to their building. Okay, so next point. That being said, Caleb, I'm on a serious note. What makes you think that they don't deserve that money? What in the hell makes you think that? I want to know. I want to get in your head. I'm not trying to say you're a piece of shit or you're stupid. I want to get in your head. What makes you think that these people don't deserve this money? Because we would determine worth wrong. Well, how do you suggest we determine worth?
Yeah, exactly. I asked that earlier.
No, it's not even that. The problem is, if you take that same person that's making that point and they were in that position, they would be acting the same way.
I'm just trying to figure out what the hell he thinks that we determine. How do you propose that we determine worth? Because if it's not money, it's going to be some other measurement, and then it's going to replace the same concept of money. You're not going to still reduce the concept. Okay,
I'm not sure yet. So you can't propose a better fucking way to adjudicate someone's worth, yet you're arguing against the current one?
My issue with this particular thing is not that. I mean, he can say, yeah, well, money. What I'm seeing is that Caleb is one of those people we talked about earlier that actually has this hatred toward money, and the people who have it. And so, because that's what we were issuing earlier. And okay, so if you like money so much, Caleb, why do you think that people don't deserve it?
Why don't you marry it? If you like money so much, why don't you fucking marry it?
On a serious note, though, Caleb, if you made $10,000 tomorrow and you got lucky. And I said, you know what, Caleb, I need some of that money. Go ahead and hook me up, bro. And you're like, well, no. And I said, now it's state law, or I'm gonna throw you in prison if you don't give me some of that money. Is that fair? I mean, it's crazy.
I think some of the conception must be that there's this idea that the billionaire is using $1 billion worth of resources, which isn't true. They're just directing where it goes.
Yeah, that's a very good distinction to make, bro.
A lot of that's not even liquid worth.
Right, it's not like they actually have the cash. I guarantee if you look at Bill Gates' bank account, he probably has only a couple $1 billion in there.
Or even Trump.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Trump probably has $10 in there. He bought. He probably bought two
billion
gold toilets. Okay, so I have a problem with the way we are determined worth based off jobs. Okay,
if you don't determine worth based on something like jobs or capital, and you don't determine it based on like military prowess, things like that, ultimately you're going to end up making a normative, like metaphysical claim that we should just value people based on their own ontology, and I just don't accept that.
well, yeah, I mean, okay, so T-shirts, that's Trenton, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Trent says, I can't fathom an individual deserving billions of dollars because he had a fortunate upbringing when other people are being born into poverty and being stuck. Okay, so my response to this question, or this statement rather, is you can't justify it, but it's also not in your control, number one. And number two is that individual deserving billions of dollars, it's not that he deserved it. He was born in circumstances which warranted him to get $1 billion, but he still has. You got to remember that everybody's going to be unique. See, the inherent problem that I'm seeing is that everybody thinks everybody should be the same. Everybody should start with the same thing in the same place and the same stuff. Whereas, okay, so for example, I can tell Patrick, oh, Patrick, you know what? Man, you're really smart in this area. So, I'm not. I don't know much. So, you know what? I deserve part of your brain. Go ahead and give me that shit. You know, like, to me, it's like. I'm thinking that we all start at different disadvantages. Some things that I'm weak in, you'll find that Patrick has advantages in. I don't think it's unfair that he has advantages and I don't. I don't think that's unfair. I think that's totally fine. Instead, I'm going to be like, you know what, I'm going to be friends with Patrick so I can learn from this guy. I'm going to see how he uses his advantages and maybe how I can actually strive to reach the same thing in my own life. Whereas socialism, this whole thing is, Patrick, give me your fucking brain. Hand it over. Because you know what,
You've got too much of it.
Also, if you look at the people who are billionaires, like on like on Forbes and stuff, most of those people started out poor. They weren't
Yeah.
they weren't born into wealthy families.
Right. And I look at Mark Zuckerberg, for example. Yeah, he went to Harvard. Okay, he was decently off when he started, but he didn't graduate. He dropped out of Harvard, whatever. I think he deserves every dollar that funnels in through Facebook. I mean, honestly, this guy had an idea. He made it happen. He put in the work. He made the right deals. He made the right decisions. He changed the entire country in some way, shape, or form, revolutionized social media, found a way for everybody to connect, made it happen, solved a lot of problems, but he deserves it. I'm sorry. I don't think it's fair to say that he doesn't deserve that money. I think he very well worked for it and deserved it. His idea and the market, the thing about a free market is it determines how much what your ideas are worth. And that's the market regulating. Whereas this is where the hypocrisy comes in, because here are socialists saying that the people should determine. The people should determine how much someone's worth. So if the market determines Mark Zuckerberg is worth X amount of $1 billion, the people determined it because the market did. So now you're saying that federal regulation should determine how much someone is worth. So
That's a really good argument. Yeah, businesses are only successful in so much as they have demand.
Yeah. So the market is the free market, and here socialism is preaching that people should have power, so the free market is regulating how much a business is making, and now you're saying it should go back to the federal government, which you're instituting the very thing which you're arguing against. I just see it as very hypocritical, and that's my challenge to the whole socialism thing. Is it's very, very hypocritical. Oh, let's single out businesses because they're pieces of shit. You know, they're all greedy bastards. You know, and Patrick still owes me his brain.
No, and socialism too is not based on any empirical data.
Yeah,
It's just like this ideology that Karl Marx created because he was having a shitty life. Hey, that's the truth.
He was just depressed as fuck, so he decided to revolutionize economics.
yeah. He was just depressed and he wanted to write and stay in his room and stay away from people.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's the whole thing is like where people are just like, oh, but you know, it's not fair. But it's like,
Life's not fair.
yeah, exactly. Like it's like natural law. You know, I mean, these are the liberals are the ones who claim to be the empiricists too, which is so ironic. You know, I mean, the principles of discernible says that, you know, there's a reason why I'm not Patrick. There's a reason why we are not the same substance, because we are different manifestations, right? We have our own unique qualities and traits, and it's a matter of capitalizing on those qualities and traits that makes you to a person. You don't have worth just because you're fucking born. Just because your parents were horny and they fucking had you does not mean you're worth as an individual. You have to actualize on your own traits, you know?
Right. That's my whole point. Is if we all had the same starting point, we would lose the individuality. But this goes back into collectivism versus individualism. I mean, circular arguments, which really mean shit. I mean, T-shirts just said, you know, they're goddamn lucky. They think of every individual who isn't a genius.
Who's lucky? Like, can you name one wealthy person that was born to?
Well, I know
that
what
was
he
wealthy
means.
and was-
It's not fair that rich individuals get things easier than others because they have money. Life isn't fair, so what we do is we can compensate by acknowledging the fact that it is unfair and dealing with the effects by taxing the ultra fortunate. Okay, I'm not even gonna respond to that.
Can I
And the funny-
interject?
I think
Yeah,
he's being an ENTP right now, so I'm gonna leave it at that.
Can I?
Go ahead,
I
Hami.
have a
Or Necro. That's you. Sorry.
yeah. But by the way, hello guys. I think that the one thing is here, like your guys, like they're saying like the column guy. They're like you're born with disadvantage. Like let's say $1 billion. You can be born with, like you said, Chad. You can be born smarter, right? Or you know, yeah, smarter and or genius, and then be successful that way. And even if not, with radical determinism or indeterminism, which are like either of them, like you guys know what those are, right?
Indeterminism?
Yeah, radical determinism, like everything is defined by cause effects. Therefore, like your actions are justified by every experience that you had. So like, pretty much your life is defined by cause effects. So like there's no freedom of action, right? So like, this
Well,
person like
In theory, but yeah, go on.
yeah, but yeah, whatever. Like even you're lucky for getting $1 billion when you're born, or you're lucky for being extremely smart, or you're lucky for having these experiences that make you learn and then therefore develop more, like create a snowball, of experience. So I mean, it's like you're saying, okay, this guy's lucky because their parents had parents who worked a lot, who created rich and created this snowball. It's like there's still gonna be unfairness and inequality in the other states anyways. You can't change radical determinism, or like you can't change like the fact that people are going to receive experiences that are going to benefit them and they're going to create a kind of a snowball. And you can't change the fact that certain people are gonna born way smarter and with like genetic characteristics that are gonna make them more successful. It's like you're appealing to like, okay, there's this inequality, and if we solve this, everything is solved. No, it's not solved, and you can't solve the other ones. So why are we even bothering with this one in the first place? Plus, the solution that you're offering is stealing. It's immoral.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what we're saying. I think you're right on the. That's a good way of putting it. I appreciate you putting it that way because that's exactly what we're saying. I mean, it's just another standpoint to tell you that you have this perspective of, okay, yeah. I mean, are you trying to put everybody in the same thing? Then what the hell is the point of even having any differences at all? We're all starting. I mean, you can't limit any of them anyway because when it starts with money, then here's the next issue. Let's say that we do successfully institute a socialistic government where 90% of my hard-earned work now is being distributed among the nation. Okay, so I have a kid, and my kid is born a freaking genius, right? The kid is an absolute genius. Oh my God, he's so smart. Okay, but now we're going to step in and say, okay, let's take his intelligence too because he was lucky. Let's just strip him and bring him back to starting point because you know what? That's not fair. Let's just remove his extra brain power. Let's get him back down to an IQ of 100 because that's not fair. We are disadvantaging everyone else because he's smart. Oh shit. I think that's it never ends. There's no limitation to that kind of thought process because again, you can start with money and then you can start with every single human trait there is. Intelligence, wisdom, you can start with arms, legs. Oh, he was born with 5 toes? Oh shit, well I have 4 and I was born with 4, so let me take that toe of yours too.
Or half it.
Yeah, or half it. Or let's split that toe among the nation. Everybody gets
little tiny pieces.
Everybody gets a little skin cell. And it's just where does it end? That's the issue with this whole concept is it's stealing. At the end of the day, it's stealing. And I can understand rules and laws and saying in statutes they say okay you have to have 10% of pay in of your gross income. That makes sense. Okay, I live in this country. I'll pay my dues. That's fine. Okay, but I want to know where that money goes. I want to be able to put that money towards something. Now, if the government goes, you owe us, okay, fine, I'll just pay you. That's okay. Now they're going to take, I owe that government because they're providing for my safety and whatever else, but if they're taking that money and they're investing it into a vehicle,
if they're taking it and they're putting it, or if they put it in anything that's not like something that's like environmental regulation or like funding a military or like public school or something like that, or that's property tax. But if they take it and they put it into something like socialized programs that I didn't decide on, that's why the first step needs to be taken is social programs need to be localized. It needs to be decentralized. For sure. I mean, the people in a certain geographical area should decide whether or not they should have social programs. Not the federal government.
Yeah, and this goes back to the original things. I believe the power of the states is the most important thing we need to keep in mind. The local governments, not the power of the federal government, because again, it becomes authoritarian and it starts to move into tyranny when you have centralized power in a government. That's the end of the day. That's what it's become. If nobody uses those programs, it's a waste of money.
Well, then we should be fucking funding them.
Yeah, why are we funding them? And it is a total waste of money. And the question is, people do use them right now, some of the public programs, but again, what's the point?
And the screwed up thing, too, is that you have liberals that anytime that you have a problem, they just say take money and throw it at it, but they won't actually go there and help the people out in the correct way.
I don't know.
Put the time in to help people.
I see that, but I can't generalize that in the sense of saying liberals in general like that. I don't know if liberal politicians
I'm talking about like far leftists in general.
Are you talking about neo-progressives?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So the real thing is we can throw around theory all day about different aspects of what the philosophical differences, but again, it goes back down to the very root thing: is it stealing? Is it not stealing? Which results in what? Natural rights. This is still the fundamental problem of all political debates: is what do people deserve by being human, and what do they not deserve by being human? And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it really, because I don't remember natural rights. I remember saying people have a right to property, and to me, it's anti-constitutional to steal it. Okay, so whereas other people, I guess liberals, disagree with that. So screw the Constitution, because it doesn't
Wait,
really...
do you think it's a natural right in and of itself, or a natural right that's imposed by the state?
Property?
Yeah, like land rights.
Land
Owning
rights?
land.
This is a whole other subject.
Yeah, because like you don't inherently have a right to owning the land on the earth.
I'll be right back, guys.
You don't inherently own it.
Yeah, and I agree with that to an extent. I think this topic was previously discussed by Eric.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to beat a dead horse. I mean, I agree with Eric's position. I watched that video, and I pretty much agree with what he said with the whole land right, property rights type of thing. He said land is different than your standard property, and there's a whole different regulation on that. What he thinks how it should be limited is not based on, because it has a limited quality. It's limited in quantity. And that's where his whole position standpoint was, and I agree with Eric's position on that too. So I don't really want to beat that dead horse. Whereas Trenton's still saying shit. Fuck the Constitution. It was written 300 years ago by people who rode in horse and carriages.
It's the best written document, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that. The horse and carriages. Yeah, I know what he's doing. I've seen him on these videos before. He's a smart guy. He's not stupid. I'm not worried about even addressing his trolling points. I don't know what's going on in this conversation over here, though. Okay, so Nani said, but what if all the money those rich people had was stolen? Well, I'm trying to read her point, but people keep writing. Damn. I don't know where it went. I lost it. I don't know where it went. Dismissing people you don't agree with as stupid. No, that's not what my point was, Callum.
I was saying, but what if all the money those rich people had was like stolen, or if like the people that were born into it inherited the stolen money?
Oh, that's a good point. Because if you're that's a good point. If you're inheriting success of other people, right, the billions of dollars, then can't you inherit failure too?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of inheritance in general. I personally don't like the concept of inheritance. I want to address something real quick. Caleb, I'm going to tell you this. I didn't call you stupid. I might have said the comment was stupid. I didn't say, Caleb, you're stupid. Okay, I said, I thought you were playing with me. I thought you were being a troll. Okay, so I said, I thought you were just being stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. You are stupid. I didn't say that. I don't know you. You probably know a lot of shit. I don't know. I'm just saying. I just want to be clear on that. I'm not attacking your entire existence as stupid. Okay, so your opinions have presented good conversation. All right. That being said, Hami, you said something I wanted to address?
I mean, no, it was Nandi.
Oh, not yet. Yeah. Okay, so, failure. Oh yeah, failure. That's what it was. Inheriting failure. Yes, I think it's if we do follow the inheritance model. Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, if you're going to inherit money, you can also inherit failure. I mean, but I don't like inheritance in general.
Well, what do you mean inherent failure?
Well, I wish you would have heard the question because they posed it better than I could ever pose it. So whoever asked that question, can you ask it again?
Well, I was saying, oh man, let's see. I was saying, if you inherit, like if you're, oh crap, if people are rich and they steal the money, and like the people who inherit the money, they're inheriting stolen money, so that's still like you're still stealing, right?
Who'd they
Because you
steal
were
the
talking
money
earlier
from?
about like, people stealing versus not stealing thing. So what if they inherit the money?
Who they? Oh, okay. If someone inherits their parents' money, did they steal the money?
Yeah, they're stolen money. Are they still stealing the money?
No.
No, because
Well,
it was in
that-
the will, and the parents' will.
Yeah, it was the will. It was
For
chosen.
example, what if someone was like came from like a
That
mob
wasn't
family,
a question.
Stolen
for
right?
example?
You guys are
They
missing.
inherited.
You guys
Okay,
are
so-
misinterpreting.
What's the?
Okay,
You're
so-
missing. You're
Necro, go ahead.
misinterpreting the question.
Okay.
You're misinterpreting the question. It's if you inherit stolen money.
Yeah, but who's the money stolen from?
Let's say in the hypothetical situation, your parents steal $1 billion or $1 million, whatever, in the hypothetical situation, and then you inherit that money. Is it still stolen
Yes.
or not? Yes. And then do you take responsibility for it?
No.
No, I don't take
Is that-
responsibility.
Because then you have something that was illegal, and because it's transferred to you, and we are setting it as unfair to create the responsibility on the son, then you are transgressing something that is illegal, and into something that is successful. Like it's as if the parents worked for them money. Do you understand? Because we're taking it as if you're inheriting success of your parents, like the money. And if you're inheriting something that is not success, like illegal money, and then the fact that you are a son, and it would be unfair for you to take it as failure, then it has to be transferred to success. Isn't that inconsistent?
Now, the issue here is that you have to realize it's the intent. Did the son, or in my case, if it were me, inheriting the money, was I aware that the money was stolen? Okay. Am I aware that the money is stolen? If I'm not aware, then I'm not held responsible. If I am aware that my parents were conniving and they stole the money, then and I took it willingly, yeah, then I'm a third party.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I was just
I know.
yeah.
I'm just
Are you saying that the money doesn't have to be returned?
who's saying that? Because I'm not saying that.
I was asking if it's Megaro. I was asking if, well, not you, but I lost the name. Are you saying the money doesn't have to be returned? Is that what you're asking? Because
If it gets okay, if what happens like if the parents like robbed a bank or some shit and they somehow preserved this money and it was inherited by their child, and when they were 18, say their parents died or something, and they have the money now, but they spend it, and then like the government like turns out they find out that it was stolen like I don't know 20 years in the past, and he doesn't have the money anymore. Should he be forced to repay it, or should he be held obligated? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's an inconsistency in the model, but it's a first
I
one.
personally,
like,
I'll tell you
I don't
hands
think you
down.
can fix it.
I'll tell you hands down, I would return the money. Hands down. Not because I'm a moral character, I'm any more moral or ethical than anybody else. I would return it because I like to bask in my own earnings. I don't like
But
inheritance.
would you force, like,
Well,
if you
the
were the government, would you force people to?
I mean,
Right.
okay. The thing is, like, you have to go to these extreme. Like, Eric has made this point too when he argues for the negative rights framework. Is that you have to go to these extreme situations to find inconsistencies with the framework. Are there inconsistencies with the negative rights framework? Fuck yes, there are, and that's why I disagree with Eric on a lot of things. Although I don't vocalize him that much, but because he's fucking argues too much. But he even one example he gave before where it's like under a negative rights framework, if someone's driving down the road with dynamite in the back of their truck and like a wooden wall and then like a big ass fucking fire, under negative rights framework, it would not be justified for the cops to stop that person and be like, "Yo, dude, what the fuck are you doing?" And it wouldn't even become a moral, like unjust deed until he blew up and killed like 5 people. Then it would now we've established it was in fact a bad thing. It's not prescriptive. That's the problem with the negative rights framework. And there are some injustices, but you have to go to these extreme situations to find these inconsistencies. But are there inconsistencies? Fuck yes, there are. But there are inconsistencies with every single fucking framework out there.
Yeah.
my framework is my framework is don't violate negative rights. That's part one. Part two is do try to help people grow. But there's a caveat. Don't violate negative rights when you do the second part.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are definitely people who are disadvantaged, but we shouldn't alleviate that disadvantage by stealing from everyone fucking else, you know? Like, then you violate the fundamental principles.
Okay, I want to address something because we could talk in circles about this shit all day. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
we could.
I want to address a really interesting question here on the more of the fact that inheritance. JC asked me, "Do you not want to leave an inheritance for your children?" No, I do not. Okay, and there's very things. Okay, you can give your children money, but you will never give them the skill of how to earn money if you don't teach them. Okay, I can give them $10,000 and say, you know what, here's $10,000. I can also teach them how to make $1 million. Which one's worth more, the skill or the 10,000?
The skill.
So when it comes down to it, you know, I would use that money and I would do like a indirect inheritance where the money would be set up in an organization or some kind of way where they can actually be taken care of, and as in minimal needs. They're not going to depend on that money. They're not going to live on that money. They're not going to be spoiled by that money.
I don't think it's wrong to, like, if they inherit, like, a house or something, like maybe a house, I think that's pretty reasonable, but, like, just the money itself, you know, if you don't teach them how to use it, why do they just spend it? Then they're fucked, you know? And it's like, plus they're not going to have the fundamental principles.
Yeah, you have to get this out of your mind. People don't inherit, like, when people think about, I inherit money, they think that you inherit liquid wealth. When you inherit something, the majority of it is like land or some type of.
It's fixed assets. It's some kind of fixed asset, you know, and that's a whole other problem. See, like it says, oh yeah, Bill Gates is worth $76 billion or whatever he's worth right now, and everybody's like, well, he must have a lot of money in his bank account. Well, you don't know that. You don't know how much is liquidated. You don't know how much is an asset. You have no clue. Bill Gates isn't a public company. It's Bill Gates. I mean, you can't look at him transparently. I mean, that's his acclaimed net worth. That's all you can get. So people shouldn't inherit a lot of money because it ruins people. I actually agree with that point. I don't like the concept of inheritance. Like I said, if I have a lot of money and I have children and I'm on my deathbed, or I'm setting up or I'm planning that I'm going to die in some way, shape, or form, or I'm predicting that I'm going to die, and or I'm old and I realize that I'm going to die soon, the thing that I would set up is to make sure they have enough money to survive, and preferably a trust. So I would say, okay, here's $500 a month. You'll get this for the rest of your natural life, but you better learn the skills that you have to work your ass off. That's it. They better learn the skills to work your ass off, because that's the only skill you need when it comes to surviving. I'm not really interested in giving them this bulk amount of money, because there's skills that come with money. It's a direct correlation in my mind as being a business person, and business has always been a mirror of me. If I fucking suck at business, it's because I fucking suck. It's not because
the cold reality.
Yeah, you know, business is always honest with me. You know, it's because my skills weren't good enough, and the market didn't like my shit. The market didn't like it, so I have to go change my idea. It's not like, oh man, it's not like, oh, the market, you know, my idea was great and the market's stupid. It's more the fact that the market determines how much I get paid. So at the end of the day, you know who my boss is? Being an entrepreneur, it's the market. The market's my boss. And it's a freaking draconian ass boss, because it will rip your balls off and shove it right up your ass.
Yeah.
So,
wait, Chad, would you give your child an inheritance if you deem them worthy of, like, having the skills to?
I don't deem them worthy. The market, I will gladly pass my boss off to them. Let the market determine how much their skills are worth. Because I'm subjective. I'm biased. I like my kids. You know what? I love you.
I have a question,
smart.
Chad. I just now thought of it. It goes way back, way before we even gotten this this argument, this debate with people. But when you found yourself pretty much in a shit situation, did you ever consider joining the military?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
You ended up just deciding against it ultimately.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons why, but yeah, I went it was an option at the time, but I have a lot of reasons. Primarily, the first reason was because I don't like being controlled. That's the primary reason.
You want to be the fucking boss, because usually you can do it better.
Yeah, my Enneagram 8, I mean, I do not like being controlled. I do not like being in a system. I'd rather be broke and eating ramen noodles than having a boss. The only boss I like is the freaking draconian-ass Herculean market, which kicks my ass on a daily basis, and that's the only boss I like. So, for me...
That's a good way to look at it. The market is your boss, like when you're an entrepreneur. It's an interesting way to look at it.
And, and it's you got to have a sick sense of masochism to have that as your boss, because the market leaves no quarter. It really doesn't. It doesn't give you a chance. I mean, you can make a $100,000 investment, and it'll just go to shit if the market doesn't like it. And it's not like, oh, I'm sorry, we'll give you some of your money back. No, it's like, oh, you just ate dirt, ha ha ha, sucker, and that's it.
That's the problem with like I heard like a lot of like Bernie Sanders supporters. There was a lot of them at my college, of course, because college life. But
oh yeah, of course.
Like they would make the argument where it's like, oh, but no, it's not socialism. It's like it's a safety net, so people can be entrepreneurs and have that safety net. And it's just like they don't understand what they're actually saying. When they say that a safety net sounds good in principle, but what they're actually saying is, that safety doesn't come from nowhere. Like that comes from other people's fucking money. And it's like that's like honestly, Eric has helped articulate a lot of that stuff to me. Although I don't agree with the full like negative rights framework, I do agree definitely fiscally when it comes to economic policies. I just can't see any justification for any sort of like centralized state taking the money and planning to redistribute it. And I also don't agree with socialism in the sense of democratic, where the means of production is in the hands of the workers. I don't agree with that either.
Right. So do you agree with a mixed economy or a pure capitalist economy, free market?
You mean mixed economy as in like state intervention?
Yeah, like some form of intervention. Like,
I want to say I'm not decided yet. To my understanding, it's a lot of economic theorists, and there was actually a book that I want to read. I think it's called like Economics in like one lesson or something like that. Ron Paul recommended it, anyways, but it basically says like a lot of the problems with state intervention is that you can't really identify what the side effects would be. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I don't know. Some people might argue it is, but I really am not informed to answer that question as of now. But perhaps in the future I will be able to.
Zachary, I gotta ask you. Eben makes a good point here. He said you need to end the video if it's still recording.
Oh yeah, it's still recording. Yeah, it's been going for a long time. Yeah. Thanks for watching Talking Famous People. This has been a really good video. Really energized. Cheers.